What's up everybody and welcome to Fab Unofficial. Now we are so close to Monarch spoiler season. We're like this far away. April 6th and I cannot wait. I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a spoiler season or for a release of a product in the entire 15 years that I've been playing TCGs. But yeah, I absolutely cannot wait. But this video is all about me putting down a few speculations, which if I get right, I get to whisk my CV off to LSS and pester them for that job interview I've been asking them about. Or you guys can mock me incessantly if I end up getting everything wrong and every speculation is totally off the mark. But we do have a few breadcrumbs to follow, which in true LSS fashion, they have been leaving for like, I think 2 months ago was the first Monarch breadcrumb. So if that isn't building anticipation, I don't know what is. But for you guys that don't know, I think the first true spoiler was from James White, the founder, director of LSS and creator of Flesh and Blood. He was on an interview with Team Covenant, must have been 2 months ago now, where he teased that Monarch is going to see the completion of the game system as Flesh and Blood was always intended to be. That in WTR we saw Melee, in Arcane Rising we saw Arcane, and that Monarch is going to introduce a third game system that will see the culmination of everything that they had designed, and that they had staggered each one of those three so that we got to enjoy and appreciate and delve into each one individually, and that now we're going to be prepared for what's to come and the full system as they've known it in the R&D and back in the lab at LSS Studios. Now, some of these speculations are going to be completely wild. They actually have no basis for truth, but that's why they're speculations, and some I'm pretty confident of just with what we know already. Now, obviously I talked about what James has told us. The other proper breadcrumb, or I don't even know if you could call this a breadcrumb, it's more like a slice of toast, but was TCG Player right here. Now, they spoiled Shadow and Light Instance. Now, we've talked about this a ton on Reddit and the Flesh and Blood fan page and what this means, but the biggest thing I was drawn to was Eclipse Existence and the Shadow Instant, because as you guys will know now, Runeblade is my favorite class, and that card clearly shares a border with Viserai himself. Now, some will be aware that the borders on the heroes and the specialization classes are clearly aligned to regions in the world of Aria, which is like the sort of map where the heroes come from. So Viserai and that border that you see around him and his specializations, along with Eclipse Existence and the Shadow Instant that's been spoiled, that border is aligned to the region of the Monastery. Now clearly, if that isn't a shadow border and a shadow card and a hero, then I don't know what is. But clearly on the Ray of Hope, I believe is the name, that border is shared with Dorinthia and the region of Solana, which is aligned with the light side. Now, we have no information for sure of how the other regions are going to pan out on this war of good and evil, but my first prediction is going to be that we see Shadow and Light Instance of different border types, not just the two that were spoiled on that initial TCG Player promo and on those two cards. That I believe Metrics, so the home of Dash and the Mechanologists, are going to be aligned on the light side. So we will see light cards, whether they're actions, attack actions, or more instants, that share the border type with Dash. Obviously, we've seen the Monastery. I also think the Pits, and so the Pits being where Azalea and Kevdeen come from, and the Savage Lands, which are the home of the Brute class. Right now they're going to align themselves with the Shadow side. I think it just makes sense. You can even look at the back of the Flesh and Blood card, which I'll show you here. Clearly this one here in the top, the weapon is the sword, which you can see the angel or spirit or warrior flying hero wielding, and the weapon down the bottom is what you see the counterpart wielding. Now you'll see on the art down the bottom some clear stuff that looks like on the map what the Savage Lands are in the pits, and on the top the same with Solana and Metrix. Now the interesting ones are the two in the middle. So I believe it's Volcor, which currently we have Kano and Kasai coming from. Already really interesting because that's two classes from the same region. And then you have Mysteria, which is currently the home of the ninjas, so Ira and Katsu. I can see a world, and I'm predicting again more Shadow and Light cards that share borders with different heroes, but I expect Volcor and Mysteria to have both Light and Shadow cards. What I'm not sure about is whether we're going to see that all in Monarch, or whether we're going to continue to see that, and that will be expanded on in Kingdoms, and that maybe for the release of Monarch each of those regions only sees like one side, and that as the story and the lore develops you see the other side introduced to those regions. But yeah, I think we're going to see Shadow and Light cards that have other borders inside Monarch. So that's prediction number 1. Now prediction number 2, if you guys haven't seen it, here is the set breakdown. Now what I'm looking at mainly is the rarities. Obviously 1 Fabled, easy prediction. I think that's going to be how they move forward with most sets, although I can see them having some sets that don't have a Fabled. I don't see them having a set that has more than 2. I just don't see why they would do it. But again, we see the 1 Fabled. Prediction number 2, I think that Fabled slot is going to be the card we see in the art for Shiana. So here's Shiana, and clearly in her hand you can see above her a diamond, some sort of light shard of some kind. In Crucible we saw the Arknight shard, which is the card just on the theme that to me feels like Shadow. It's Viscerai specialization. It shares a border with what we know to be the Shadow instant, and I could see a Fabled card, that shard or diamond that we see Shiana holding or floating in her hand. I'm predicting seeing that shares a border type with the Ray of Hope, which is the light instant. Whether that's going to be a Dorinthia specialization or a specialization of a hero class we haven't seen yet, I'm not sure, but that's my pick for the Fabled. Now, my third and probably the most boring pick is I think we are going to see 4 new hero classes, or actually, how should I word this? I think we're going to see 3 brand new hero classes, and then we're going to see 1 hero class which we've been teased at, but we're going to actually see some cards for. So I think Merchant is going to be a hero class that's in Monarch. I think we will not see an adult Kevdeen. I think it will be a complete other hero, similar to the Dorinthia, Kasai, or the Reinhardt KO style. I think Kevdeen is a strictly young hero that is purely for Blitz, but we will see an introduction of a new Merchant hero that's going to fill that role, and that will also be aligned to the Shadow side on the set. I think the other 3 Hero classes are going to be completely new. The only thing I have to say about that is I have my fingers crossed and I hope that we see Necromancer. I just can anticipate myself absolutely loving that class. I always loved that style of gameplay, and normally it means like the reuse of the graveyard or some other aspect, arcane damage and some ability of a little bit of melee or whatever that looks like. I'm just praying and hoping that we see Necromancer introduced into the Flesh and Blood world. Now, you guys, I'll pull it back up with Shiana. We talked about the diamond that's floating in her hand. My final prediction for Monarch is for that 6th legendary slot that you saw in the card list. Now, if you look at WTR and Arc, we saw 5 legendaries. So the 4 class legendaries, which I don't expect to change. I think we'll see a legendary for Merchant and then 1 for each of the other classes, and the 5th one to be a generic, either a boots or an arms. Obviously WTR gave us Fyendel Spring Tunic, and Arcane Rising gave us Arknight Skullcap, so I expect another all-star piece of equipment, either boots or arms, to be that 5th generic slot. That 6th one, which is the real speculation, I think we are going to see the shadow counterpart to Shiana's Diamond Gemini. Now, I am not, I don't know a lot about star signs, and the only reason I know this is because I personally am a Gemini, but Gemini is all about those 2 personalities, the 2 people, and I think it's written there in the name. I think Shiana is clearly a card, just from the look of her, that is aligned to that light side, and that Monarch, in bringing into that theme and that 3rd system into the game, I think we are going to see the shadow counterpart to Shiana. Whether the abilities are the same, I don't know. I can imagine them being quite different, but that's my biggest pick for this. I think we are going to see a 2nd shape-shifting hero. I think it would wrap everything up in a nice, neat little bow, with Shiana obviously being the light side, them introducing the dark side to her, and that Monarch seeing the release of that game system as well. I think it all makes sense, and if there's one thing that we know about LSS, it's that they like everything to be tied up in a nice, neat little bow. So yeah, there's a few predictions. Whether it comes true, I don't know. We'll only find out in time. I've got my fingers crossed that we get a spoiler. For you guys that don't know, I've been involved with LSS and helping them with a few photos and coverage on a few different things. So I have had a spoiler in the past, which you guys can see. It was about as spicy as a potato. They gave us Reinforce the Line, which obviously I'm grateful. Any spoiler is good, but LSS, if you're watching, I'd like a bird's eye chili or a ghost pepper chili spice level on whatever the next spoiler you give me is, if I get one at all. So yeah, there's a few predictions for you guys. Please let me know down in the comments what you think, whether you agree with any of those, or what you guys would like to see from Monarch. Obviously, I'm super excited about it, and you know, we've still got 10 days left before spoiler season actually starts, and if there's anything that's going to get me through waiting for spoiler season, it's talking about what to expect in spoiler season. So make sure you hit me up, comments, or you can check us out on Facebook at Flesh and Blood TCG, and the same on Instagram. Let me know what you think. Alright guys, until next time, where I have a spicy Blitz deck tech for my Ninja deck, which is not Ira. So check back in for that on Thursday. Alright team,